We're going live.
Oh, that's tasty. Oh, hello.
All right. Took us a minute there. We apologize for that. We thought we had everything set up, but apparently we did not. So that's my apologies. But we should be live now. I'm going to go make sure that everything's kosher.
We're live. We are live.
Awesome.
Welcome,
live. Everybody. This is our 4/29, April 29th live stream, Sipping Through Social Isolation. This is something that we like to get together, just have a few drinks, kind of talk about some whiskey news, world news, and see how life's treating us. So
somehow I lost the audio.
Anyone who's out there, let us know what you're sipping on today, and I'll let everybody kind of introduce themselves and tell us what they've got in front of them today as well. So we'll start. Wes, you were the first one to log on.
I'm Wes Jolly. I'm the World Whiskies writer for Modern Thirst, and tonight I am drinking via random number generator. I decided to look at my 94 open bottles and let it pick the whiskeys for me. And first up is Wyoming Whiskey Double Cask, which is a 5-year-ish old wheated bourbon finished in sherry cask. And the other bottle I'm drinking tonight is from Islay, Bruichlotti's Scottish Barley, the classic Lottie. It's an unpeated Islay whiskey.
Very nice. Very nice. I believe Timothy was second.
Timothy Van Riper, single barrel snob, staff writer for Modern Thirst. Tonight, I felt like a little wild turkey, so kind of doing an array of different wild turkeys. Some Wild Turkey 101 just from random eras. Like I'm drinking a 2013 right now. I'm going to move probably to a 2018, which was the what was this? LLHG, the one that has a little extra aged stock in the batch. So I'm just drinking some Wild Turkey tonight. I'm going to bounce around all over the place.
Awesome. Bill Scott.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So tonight I did something a little bit different. I was a while ago. I got a hold of a bottle that when I opened it the first time, I don't know what was wrong. I'm not sure what it was. I'm not sure if it was the bourbon or if it was me. So I am giving this one a second shot.
Oh.
So it was one of those things where sometimes you pour something and your brain just says, no, not the right time. So I want to see if tonight's the right time. And then if for some reason it turns out that it's me and I'm flawed, then I have a backup here of a Woodford Reserve store pick from a local store up here called Mr. C's. And going to give that a try to find out how that store pick went.
That's awesome. Trips McGee is drinking some Russell's Reserve Argonaut store pick CNF, which I think NCF, non-chill filtered, I'm guessing. I love Russell's Reserve. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
You get a good store pick of that, and it is just golden. Anyway, I'm Bill Straub. I'm the editor of Modern Thirst, and I'm sipping on some Four-Gate Kelvin Collaboration 2. It's our batch 6 that just went out to stores. Just saw a couple of reviews online in the last week, so we're pretty proud of the reception of that so far. And with that in mind, we also later on in the broadcast will be giving away a sample of batch 6, 2 ounce.
Wow.
So that'll be our 2 ounce sample to our coin holders today. I've got everybody plugged into my random generator there and list generator, and we'll be rolling. Trip said he got his Four-Gate batch 5 from Justin's House of Bourbon today. Speaking of that Russell's Reserve, that batch 5 is, you're gonna like it. No further comment on that from me.
My batch 6 is scheduled for delivery tomorrow.
So we got a couple of things we wanted to talk about today. First thing, Wes and I were kind of chatting, and we just kind of mentioned that there's been just an explosion of you name it, whiskey blogs and vlogs and video casts and podcasters, and it's kind of hard to know where to go anymore. I switched over from Google Play to Google Podcasts because I use an Android phone because, I just have to be difficult on everything. So I switched over to the new podcast app, and I just searched for bourbon, and I couldn't find half the guys that I normally was following before. I mean, there must be 200 bourbon podcasts on Google. And so, I guess the real question is, are we going to hit a saturation point with this? If so, are there too many? Are there not? Is there room for thousands more, or what do you guys think?
I think we're already in the oversaturated. I mean, it is bizarre the amount. I mean, I think it's great if you're out there and you have a niche or you have a solid following and you're enjoying what you're doing, do it. I say the more the merrier. But there is a lot. Yeah, I don't want to play gatekeeper and say this amount can do it and this can't. Whatever. Like, there's a lot out there. We may be oversaturated, but hey, man, it's all fun. I'm having a good time. If they're having a good time.
I guess that's the question. Is there are so many out there now, and when is that going to start backing away? And the different, whatever you're looking at, whether it's a YouTube channel or whatever, they're feeding off of each other. And the people are going from channel to channel to channel. And it's that same group of people. And I'm just wondering, there's not a lot of uniquenesses out there between them. So I'm wondering when that is going to maybe come crashing down. Even when you look at now, same thing when you look at the number of craft distilleries out there now. Sure. A couple thousand of them. I think that some of them are going to be weeded out when these shutdowns are over. I think that some of them aren't going to survive it. And I'm wondering what's going to be the tipping point for all of the talking heads about whatever type of whiskey out there, because it becomes a race to who can get something posted the quickest on the newest thing. That's kind of the race now. Who can be the first to talk about the new release?
I kind of have a slightly different take on that, and not to argue. I think it's just different perspective, right? When I was growing up, you had countless movie critics, right? And people knew some of the big ones, right? Like Siskel and Ebert or whatever, but they were all different. And what you found out over time was, I always agree with that guy or that gal, or I almost never agree with that guy or that gal. And it may just end up being that some of these reviewers end up being that we gravitate towards our favorites because they tend to like the things that we like, and they tend not to like the things that we won't like, or vice, or just, in similarity like that. I think is one thing. And I think the other thing is going to be about style. And if it's something that you're passionate about, and I think it's something that you really love, and you're taking the time really to study it and inform yourself, I think that you can be, how do I put this? I think you can be the person who has the following, even if you're not breaking news, because you are the in-depth content, or you are the experience, or the context that other people might lack, or the communication style that makes it much more approachable and easy to understand in a way that makes it so that people want to follow you.
I tend to agree with what Bill's saying. My personal opinion is I'd never want to discourage anyone from giving it a shot. If do it, get in there, get your feet wet. What I've noticed, I remember my one little anecdote is this was in about mid 2016. So we started in the beginning, end of 2014, early 2015. We didn't really gain much traction on Modern Thirst until starting in 2016, when the bourbon world kind of really took off. And I was asked to speak to a bourbon group up near Cincinnati. And so I talked to him a little bit about Modern Thirst. We were fairly new, but we were probably getting, 100,000 on track to get 100,000 hits in over a 12-month period. And then it was looking like it was going to trend more towards 250,000 over the next 12 months or more. Wound up being about 500,000 and all. But I remember talking to him, and there were a couple of guys in the front who didn't know who we were. And I overheard them afterwards saying, "Oh, it's a new guy. Their site won't exist in a year." I overheard them saying that afterwards. And,
wow.
Haters gonna hate, bro.
I mean, here we are 6 years later, and we're one of the top 20 bourbon blogs in the world in terms of traffic, or whiskey blogs in the world. We're top 10 in terms of just bourbon. If you count us as bourbon, we do more than bourbon, but we're primarily American whiskey.
Truly. But
really, what I really thought was just, what it comes to for me is I think that it's you naturally weed yourself out. There's some industries that are like this, some jobs that are like this. There's very little reward to this in terms of, you're not going to make a lot of money doing this. There's only so many Fred Minnicks in the world. There's only so many Bourbon Pursuits, and they work really hard at this. And after a year or 2 years of looking at your views in the hundreds over the course of a month, it's really hard to keep doing that. It's really hard to keep putting yourself out there and filming a video or, writing a blog or writing a review or something like that. And eventually most people just kind of fall away. It's just the time commitment is too much. If you really want to succeed in this, and the ones who will, they're the people who are going to, number one, invest in it starting out. So you don't see Bourbon Pursuit, which is probably the biggest bourbon podcast I know of out there. You don't see them going out with second-rate equipment and bad sound, and they don't post something on YouTube unless it's a good recording. They have very good editing. They have very good production. Those survive. And the other thing they do is they record, edit, and post constantly. You have to go at least weekly to get into a medium like that. It has to be every week. People have to know that on Wednesdays, I'm going to log on and I'm going to download the podcast. I'm going to listen to it on the way to work, or on
Whiskey
Fridays, every other Friday, this person's going to post a video or 2 videos a week or something along those lines. And that's how you're successful in social media. And what I've noticed, and what I tend to notice, is that the blog format is becoming a little bit less prominent in the whiskey community. And the podcast is still very big, and YouTube is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. People like that interaction. They like to see people, see their expressions, hear what they have to say. And your personality comes through so well on video that's probably, in my opinion, that's where the bulk of this is going. And I've also noticed that I don't read whiskey reviews anymore other than ours. I just don't. I taste it for myself, and if I like it, I like it. But I think the way to start now, there's so many good people doing reviews. I like to read what Wes writes, and Tim, what you write. I like to listen to Fred Minnick and his opinions, and I'll occasionally read a Breaking Bourbon, a Bourboner, or something like that, where they kind of review a bourbon. But more or less, what I think is it's going to make people successful is if they find some way to make it journalistic, to really dig into things, right, to find the story behind the whiskey. It's not always about, is this release good or not? Because you can find that. It's out there from 100 different reviewers in 100 different places. And I'll watch videos of those all day long. I don't really read a lot of blogs on them anymore. Right. But what I really like are the personalities. I like the people that are funny, that have good videography, that have an interesting take on things, and a different approach to what they're writing about, and talking about the people behind the scenes, as opposed to, here's a bottle. Here's what I think about it. So I think it's interesting. Right. I don't know where it's going, but I think it's definitely harder to survive now than it was when we started.
I think that's interesting. Just like I think there's obviously there are different palates. We talk about that all the time. Mm-hmm. And as Bill Scott was saying, you find the person who you connect with their palate that lines up with you. Same thing for me on the written word. After I taste a whiskey, I may not review it or may not be planning to review it, but I want to know what other people say about it, or what they're thinking, or if they think the same things. And when I Google and look it up, I usually go to the written word first because I can skim it. I can quickly go through and see what they're saying, where you may have a 25 or 30-minute video and you gotta kind of scrub through it to, okay, where's the meat of this review? What are they thinking about it? So I still do think there's a place for the written word. For those who are good at it, I think I would even prefer that than even watching a video sometimes on a review of a whiskey.
Absolutely. Where do you guys think published materials are going? Whiskey magazine type stuff?
I feel like we're going to start to see a crossover. Was it Whiskey Advocate that was talking about the black market of bourbon secondary? I think that's going to start being a trend. You're going to start seeing like maybe not so much a cross promotion, but instead of just staying in your lane, you're going to go explore all these other mediums. You're still under the roof of bourbon community, but you're also, well, what's going on over here, or what's going on in this region where there's bourbon, because there's also like Wes was saying earlier, there's a lot of craft distilleries that are doing great bourbon, but they're not being distributed nationally. So I think you're going to start seeing like dipping in and out of all these other mediums and areas.
I'd love to see a Whiskey Advocate or American Whiskey Magazine or one of those really jump into kind of the full media scale of things. Have do it on your site, do it on YouTube. I don't care what it is, but they have a lot of personalities that write for them that are big names in whiskey. Maggie's the editor of American Whiskey Magazine, for goodness sakes, and she's one of the most down to earth, friendly people you ever meet. And I'd like to see them become very active in not just publishing their magazine, but some supporting multimedia content as well. I don't see why they wouldn't. That's kind of what we do. We're primarily a blog, but we
Sure.
augment it with things like this, and I record videos here and there, and we've done the odd podcast. We'll never be popular in podcasting because there's no way I'm going to do a weekly podcast or something like that. There's too much.
I think the bar's been raised on a lot of the print magazines over the past few years when you're looking at some of the quality that's coming out there. But a lot of people, I think that draws people who are just getting into it, who may see something on a shelf and go, hey, I want to learn more about so-and-so. I probably subscribe to 5 different magazines just to see what they're doing. And when you look at, what Fred Minnick's done with Bourbon Plus, that magazine, just the level of photography and stuff in that and the depth of the articles. I'm looking at them for the depth of the articles. Tell me about the people, tell me about the background, tell me about the distillery. Because by the time you tell me about the whiskey, that's probably going to be old news.
Yeah.
But tell me about the people behind it and the stories. And I think that's the draw for some of the magazines and the different periodicals that are out there.
And I think that's right.
I just love the printed material. I think for whatever reason, it still to me seems like if something you say or you believe or you've done gets printed, for some reason, it's a certain level of validation over any other format. I guess it's because the barrier to entry on that is, no one's printing a magazine on the cheap. You're well capitalized. You're a professional organization. There's a million folks out. Anyone can start a blog. Anyone can start a YouTube channel. Anyone can start a podcast. A couple $100. But if you have a magazine, you're hiring legit writers. You're professional. And I know from Fourgate's perspective, when our reviews show up in Whiskey Advocate, it's a big day for us. So.
Right. And I think that's part of it too, is it's quality of content, the quality of the visuals. When you start talking about excellent photography, you're talking about somebody who didn't just walk in there with an iPhone and catch a lucky shot. They usually have to plan it. They usually had to have intent. But I think the other thing that differentiates real quickly, because it was, okay, so what is it that raises the bar or makes you different than somebody else? It is definitely, like I said earlier, I think it definitely is your context, what it is that you know already that you can bring to this. Wes is an excellent example because his background is so varied and he has such a breadth of knowledge on this that being able to draw in other bits of knowledge from different parts of the whiskey world and make that come together in a salient way is really a big deal. But I think it's also going to end up being a bit about access, right? So if you are a legitimate bourbon or whiskey outlet for media, and you have developed a reputation for professionalism, for the ability to write a story well, and to not do hit pieces just for the sake of trying to get clickbait. If you are responsible about this and you do a good job with your crafting of your content, then what you can end up with is a reputation for that, whereby when you make a phone call and you say, hey, we'd like to actually ask somebody, more about this, or we'd like to do a background profile on you. What do you say? They're going to say yes more often than if somebody just calls cold and has no reputation and no experience in the world.
Something else I really like about magazines and things like that is that if there's something, for example, if you're in it, I've never been featured in one as far as I know, but when for example, we get our scores for Fourgate, that's tangible. I can hold that in my hand and show that to people, and I don't have to
frame it.
Yeah, you can frame it. Things like that. That's important. It's a permanence, even though things online may actually be more permanent than printed materials at this point. There's a permanence to it. I enjoy it. I really do. This brings me to another kind of extension of this topic. So this whole social isolation and the COVID-19 has really changed the way people are interacting and doing business. Is this going to change the whiskey media? We're doing this on Zoom. This is probably topics we would have written about in the past. But we've kind of taken to getting together on Zoom for that kind of human interaction. And you can't get out and interview people right now face to face. You can't go out to a distillery right now and tour it. So this is it. This has been it for the last 6-7 weeks. Do you guys think this is going to drive a lot more people towards multimedia as opposed to sticking to a single platform, whether that be a podcast in the past or written word or something along those lines, printed?
It's definitely going to open things up because you now have now that it's been proven that this can work, this medium can work and this format can work, you're going to have more, I'd say you're just going to have more access. It's no longer going to be, hey, I can make it out there on Wednesday to the distillery to interview. Will that work for you? Sure.
Right.
Now it's going to be, hey, I have 45 minutes on this day. Let's hop on a call really quick and let's talk. So in that regard, it's just now that it's, like I said, it's a proven format. It's just going to open things up more. I don't know if it's going to change anything, but I definitely feel it's going to make it more accessible for sure.
I think it may become a fallback. I think there may be a little bit of a backlash to it once the social distancing becomes a thing of the past a little bit more, because, for example, you watch the Scotch Fest Dummies now. They're doing it split screen. I like watching those guys, but there's something different about the two of them sitting beside each other, talking about the whiskey rather than split screen. There's something different about listening to the Bourbon Round Table or watching a video of them doing the interview with the person right there and seeing some of the facial expressions and those things. So I think there's a little bit different dynamic. I do think it's easier when you can't make the connection in person, but I believe we're going to see some of it go back. Obviously, this is front and center now because of the time we're in, but I think that we'll revert back to what was normalcy, 2021.
I do think, one interesting thing is that a lot of people who didn't before now have the capability to, because I'm a little bit of a when it comes to
nerd.
Audio video stuff, I'm a little bit of a nerd. I have to have good equipment, even if I don't need it. I have more audio equipment in this room than you can shake a stick at, and we very rarely do anything audio related. But if you've ever gone looking for things that were very common and very inexpensive before, simple audio, USB audio interfaces to plug a dynamic microphone into a computer that used to be $45, there's a 60-day wait on them, and they're costing $199 on Amazon right now. And that's across all platforms. That people needed a way to do these meetings. They wanted their audio to sound good. They wanted their video to be good. You can't get what used to be a simple Logitech webcam for $50 is now $200 if you can find them. Same for every microphone is double in cost. Every USB microphone is sold out. All the interfaces are sold out. In the future, people have all this equipment, and I doubt they're just going to throw it in a shoebox and let it go. So I do think that you probably will see a little bit more of this down the line. And more probably for a lot of these other outlets, more as filler than as their primary means of communication. So they'll have their regular blog posts on, Mondays and Fridays or something like that. And then Wednesdays they'll get together for something like this, kind of like we're doing right now. I think that's going to become more common, because whereas it required some effort to get to it before, everyone has had to put that effort and that expense out, and they can do it now.
Yeah. And I think that the other thing that'll happen is, so I think what you guys said earlier was right, that we're going to eventually get back to the thing that we were more familiar with. And I don't think it's just a fallback because it's the thing that we're familiar with. I think it's going to be a fallback because it's the thing that feels more natural. I mean, I listened to a sales podcast, those guys talking about how they're not in the same room. They're in their own homes. They're in their own home studios, and it's produced and it sounds great, but even just hearing it, it conjures an image of these guys being separate and apart. And you like the idea that there's collaboration, that there's the inside joke that can happen, that they could be making eye contact and laughing about something that's kind of off camera or off the microphone. And there's something to that dynamic. So I see that happening. But what I think is very interesting is that I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but I've had several of my clients meet my children because they'll walk into my office and appear on camera because they don't understand that I can't right now just go and get more mac and cheese for them. So
that almost happened at the start of this broadcast.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it kind of did. I've been quick with the mute button, but he's been out here twice. So, and God bless him. And what's been very interesting for me about that is that I've actually had clients like lean forward and they're like, oh, introduce us to your little buddy, and that's cool. What I mean about the change here is that I think there's a certain level of acceptability now for something like this format. I think that because I've had my kid roll into a meeting a couple of times, I'm going to be less freaked out about it, because all of us went through several months where this was possible. For most of the meetings that you were in, somebody was going to have a kid walk in and say something, or the dog was going to bark, or the neighbor was going to start up a lawnmower, and there was nothing you could do about it. So there was a bar that dropped in terms of that. Like, we now expect that this is something that we can consider, acceptable. And I think because of that, this becomes part of this becomes one club in the bag. I don't think it becomes the club. I do think that it stays in the bag and can be used as needed.
That's a good point. I agree. I think it's going to be a tool that they'll use, but I don't know that I don't know a lot of people are going to change formats. They'll just add it to the repertoire, add it to the game. Good point.
Thank you.
So the next thing that I wanted to talk about really was, we got the press release this week, and unfortunately, I apologize to the guys who sent it out that I haven't run it on the site yet. I've just been absolutely swamped. The folks that run Bourbon Pursuit and the Bourbon Community Roundtable have organized Whiskey from Home. This is, if you've ever been to one of the bourbon festivals in Louisville, like the Bourbon Classic and any of those, this is kind of a virtual edition of one of those. I think it's a neat idea. It's free, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see the actual website for it, but they have a schedule of it's going to be this Saturday of events and lots of seminars and things. And they sent out a shopping list. And if you want to take part in their cocktail making classes and their tastings, it's all very common, easy to find stuff for the most part. So you can kind of play along at home. I think it's a great idea. Let's see here. Here it is. Let's see if everybody can see that. Let me know if you guys see it. My screen.
Nothing yet.
There we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
So basically, it's going to be kind of an all-day event starting at noon on Saturday the 2nd. So if you were hoping for Derby and you're not going to get Kentucky Derby, you can kind of tune into this thing. I think it's neat. So they brought in a lot of their friends. It's a lot of the folks. If you've watched the Bourbon Community Roundtable from Bourbon Pursuit, a lot of those folks are on this and some additional ones as well. And they're pretty much the folks online that I like to follow. So starts out with kind of an introduction, and then Breaking Bourbon's going to talk, and Brian Hara, Sippin Corn, is going to do some kind of historical notes, which I just think is fantastic. And then they have these breaks in between where Ryan from Bourbon Pursuit is going to show you how to make some cocktails with bourbon. So, you get your shopping list, and, you got to have all of these. He's going to show you how to make a standard muddled a new way to make an old fashioned here. And it's kind of neat. I think I've signed up for it from a free ticket. And I think that basically just means that if it's Zoom or whatever, that, there's space for you, because those are limited to maybe 400 people or something like that. But a lot of good people on this. Peggy No Stevens is one of the best voices and best palates in whiskey. Bourbon and Banner is probably they were probably the reason why I started Modern Thirst, because I love theirs and I wanted to do something similar to what Pops does. So lots of good stuff going on. Bourbon Night is probably the best produced in terms of videography.
Sure.
YouTube channel, and their personalities of the two folks who run that are a married couple, are just fantastic and a lot of fun to watch. And of course you got Fred. So it's a great lineup of people. It's a great lineup of names, not just individuals, but brands. Dad's Drinking Bourbon is one of my favorite podcasts, and they're on there. I was happy to see them on there.
I appreciate the tagline of Bourbon Banter, their little paragraph talking about, I don't know if you caught that, about what they're gonna go do. A little more. There you go.
Quit chasing unicorns. Stop asking for Pappy. There's plenty of great bourbon if you know what you're doing. Listen as our panelists give tips on getting their hands on really unique single barrels and the best way to rub shoulders with your local liquor store owner. But be careful. There's a lot of traps. So I think this is interesting. Redbird 101's on that. If you're a Wild Turkey fan, he's somebody you need to follow on social media. And this is a panel discussion, but it's really neat. It's segmented in terms of, anywhere from 15 to 45 minute seminars starting at noon, and it goes all the way to about 5 o'clock. So 5:30, as a matter of fact. So I plan to log in throughout the day to various different parts of this and
Right.
check it out.
So, Bill, isn't there a virtual derby on Saturday? Are you Kentuckians dressing up and everything for the virtual derby?
I'm not going to comment on this because I know there's people having parties that shouldn't be having parties.
You know, I saw a neat meme on Facebook or on Twitter or something today, and it said recycling in 2019 is no, I'm not an alcoholic. I swear, I just had a party. And in 2020, to your recycling man, no, I didn't have a party. I swear, I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, geez. Oh, geez.
Yeah, I'm not really into the historical races. There, they've got Secretariat is in there, and it's all the Triple Crown winners. Any of them that run a Triple Crown, they're doing a simulated race. And by all, I mean, I know that they're going to have some sort of a computer model to factor in randomness, but by all right, Secretariat should win it. I mean, he ran the ridiculously fastest Derby in history.
That's my question is, how is anyone going to compete with Secretariat unless they have bad weather or something like that
Right.
in the algorithm and something comes up because just the margin of victory and the time.
They'll have to factor in for some reason some kind of other adverse track condition or something else that has to be into the math that we can't possibly know about. Otherwise, why tune in?
From what I understand, they're going to the conditions are going to be based on the weather and conditions in Louisville on Saturday, which is supposed to be pretty nice, I think.
No, so standard.
So,
yeah.
So you would think that if the weather reports hold true, and I'm not wrong, I'm not just completely making this up, but I was kind of hoping to play golf at various times this week, so I've been watching the weather. You would think that it would be Secretariat in a landslide, but who knows? I don't know. I'm not a historical. I'm not a big horse guy. I like to party during the Derby and all that, but I don't follow the ponies. And if I can bet on Twin Spires, I will, because I am so desperate for any type of sports and sports betting, and I have an account. So.
Just any kind of betting, I'll take it. I don't care.
They have
please
having betting on this. Are they gonna have betting on this?
Of course, there's got to be some betting. There's got to be some betting somewhere. Come on.
I mean, I know unofficial, but I'm talking about official, like sanction from some,
OTB.
Yeah,
I bet Twin Spires does. I mean, this is put on by Churchill, right? Aren't they the ones sponsoring this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would be shocked if they don't. That you can do in Kentucky. They have what do they call them? The terminals where you're betting on historical races. You don't really know the outcome or where or anything like that, but the terminals down off Poplar Level Road, they have the virtual off-track betting. So video horse racing, I think, is what they call it, or something like that. But yeah, so I'm betting that they do. If not, then I mean, you better believe we'll find a way.
Right. Eric in the comments was saying
type of a Kentucky Derby party or event where there wasn't betting, whether that be Twin Spires of late or just some dude in the corner who happens to have a box of cash sitting in front of him.
Right. Well, and that's Eric in the comments was saying that that they're definitely local bookies are going to be doing something.
Oh yeah.
And that he got his pick for $50. So not that I'm advocating something that's not supposed to happen, in case I don't know what the law is in Kentucky. So I'm just going to zip it from there. But
well, I mean, you can bet horse racing on Twin Spires. That's it. In Kentucky. Okay. Hopefully someday soon we'll have legalized sports betting.
They just opened that up in Michigan. I have not been, because they opened it up and then shut down the state about 3 days apart.
That tends to happen sometimes.
Yeah.
On occasion. So the only other thing that I was going to mention is what's the first thing once they start reopening everything in your states. Now, it's a little different here in Louisville because as Timothy knows, since he's on the front lines with that, we never shut down retail liquor stores. But it's the first thing you guys are going to do whiskey related once they start reopening your area.
Wes?
I mean, I've been able to get all the whiskey I wanted, even while we're in stay-at-home mode. I mean, via mail order and visiting the store and stuff for curbside pickup and stuff. So I think the thing that I'm looking forward to is actually going to the local distilleries in their bars or tasting rooms and actually reconnecting there. I think that's an important part of it. And I mean, for me, the third or fourth week of June was always Stranahan's Cast Thief. They haven't put anything out on that yet. I'm hoping they're trying to have that later in the summer, but it's, going to be tough with hundreds of people showing up for that. So those are the things. That's the thing that I'm looking for whiskey related, is back to those types of larger gatherings, where you are going to have to break social distancing, whether it's at the local tasting room, bar area, or an event.
Mm-hmm.
Bill, you've been a little more locked down than we have here in Kentucky. So.
Yes, but Michigan has decided that weed shops and liquor stores are 100% essential. So we haven't had any issues with that. Now, that said, I have been pretty careful about, what kind of trips out I've made, not for any other reason than just being respectful of the circumstances and people, as you guys know, you start shutting things down like this and you start getting people like informing on neighbors and weird stuff happening. So I just found that it was easier just to go along to get along. But I am looking forward to going back into the couple of stores that I go to, specifically like Mr. C's, that I've got their lovely store pick Woodford here. That's my go-to shop. Those are my guys. And we have state minimum pricing here, and they never price anything over state minimum. So I'm just looking forward to going back in and seeing them, seeing how they weathered this storm, spend a little bit of money in there, and just, let them know I appreciate that they, are keeping on.
Greg Markham, only booze and weed for Bill Scott, safety first. Oh, we don't have weed in Kentucky. Sorry to say. Well, legally.
It's gonna be
yeah, you don't have weed. It's only the number one cash crop, but it's fine. Don't even.
Don't blow it for everybody, Bill. Jesus.
Come on, man, get it together.
So what?
It's gonna be two things for me. It's gonna be opening back up my tasting room and getting to hang out with all those people, because I miss those people terribly.
So for those not in the area, Timothy runs the tasting room at Westport Whiskey and Wine, which is the best liquor store, the best whiskey shop in Louisville, which is the best city to buy whiskey in the world, to buy bourbon in.
Thank you.
Their tasting room is phenomenal. You can find their prices. You can't buy a pour of whiskey at a better price than you can at Westport Whiskey and Wine. You can sit back there, taste a bunch of different things, a lot of rare stuff, a lot of great stuff. And Timothy's usually the one back there if he's on the clock that day, making it all happen. So I completely forgot about that, Tim.
I definitely did not.
I will share with you my Saturday plan, which I have a round robin trip to South Denver. 5280 Whiskey Club in Colorado out of Denver is releasing a single barrel Jack Daniels called Old Blue Eyes that was picked on Sinatra's birthday, 133 proof. So I have a couple bottles of that I'm going to pick up. Then I'm stopping by Talnua Distillery. If you buy a bottle there, they give you hand sanitizer that they're making.
Nice.
So
Nice.
You get a couple bottles of hand sanitizer with each bottle you purchase. And then on the way back, hitting Stranahan's, because they're doing 375 milliliter of their cocktails that you can purchase to go.
That's fantastic.
Round robin to support local distilleries.
That's
and
cool.
whiskey
Fantastic.
clubs.
So
There you go.
I do have to ask Timothy a question along the following up on the tasting room thing.
Yeah.
So you're going to have some sort of a special flight, right, when you reopen? Like
Absolutely.
Just something to blow people's minds.
Of course.
Would you take suggestions from the viewers and listeners of Modern Thirst?
100%.
All right. So
Oh,
if you're out there, if you're watching this live, or if you're
There
watching
goes
this,
that.
a recording, I want you to post in the comments what you think should be on a flight. Just give us a theme. You don't have to pick like a specific whiskey, because there's no guarantee that they've got it there for the tasting bar, but give us some sort of a really cool idea for Tim, a suggestion to see if he can run with something really cool for when they reopen the tasting bar at Westport Whiskey and Wine. And I promise you, Tim, when it's reopened, you make sure you let me know when it's there.
Absolutely.
And, I'm going to be up there first in line.
And it's funny is my theme before I closed the tasting bar, before it got closed rather, because I wasn't the one who did it, because I did not want it to happen. Even though I'm very grateful that it happened, because it's safety first, folks. But my theme was all whiskeys that were at least 120 proof. So
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's like hand sanitizer, right? Like that's the
Exactly.
effective CDC range for when you can.
So we're cleansing, as our president said, cleansing the inside.
Right. I prefer I prefer 120 proof plus
proof.
over Clorox. I'm just
Absolutely. If you're gonna inject your body with something, it might as well be whiskey.
Whew, I just switched to our Foundation Batch 5. That's a tasty whiskey.
I thought it was teamwork then safety. Is that not the?
No. Teamwork makes a dream work, but safety first.
Yes.
Are we ready to give away a sample here?
Yeah, let's give away some stuff. Why
Let's
not?
do it.
All right, so we've got a sample. This just came out. It should be hitting stores this week if it's not already out. This is the Kelvin Collaboration 2 from Foregate Whiskey. It's a 12-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon, so it's all 12 years old. High rye mash bill, 18% rye, 8% malted barley. This is 126.4 proof, and we finished this in cognac and dark rum casks. So the cognac casks, the 3 big cognac butts or whatever you call them, they're massive barrels. Finished those for about a month longer than the rum. The rum was dark rum, and they were from the same distillery down in the Florida Keys, where we got the barrels from our first batch, the first Kelvin collaboration, which is sherry rum. So this is cognac rum. It is so sweet. The nose on this just is kind of, as far as my opinion goes, it's incredible. Check out, there's My Bourbon Journey, Oak and Smoke Whiskey Reviews, and Fred Minnick all did reviews on this in the past week. It's been really, really nice. But what was Fred
Minnick's take on it? Can you refresh our memories, please?
I believe he said,
can he say that?
Holy shit balls. There you go. Holy shit balls.
That was my favorite line from it.
It has an amazing.
Very happy with that. Very happy.
So
with
you
that.
heard it first.
But anyway, 2-ounce sample. Foregate Batch 6, Kelvin Collaboration 2, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey finished in cognac and rum casks, 126.4 proof. You can find this in Kentucky. Tennessee they will be getting theirs in the next week or so. And if it's still on Sealbox, I know they sold a bunch of them the first day. They had just a handful of cases on Sealbox.com, so check them out too. I've got all of our coin holders in the. Before I start this, I'm gonna go check my email and make sure that no one.
Make sure that anyone that bought one.
That happened last time. We did. Hold on.
Cool.
Got to add you to the list.
I'm actually gonna pour myself a little bit of this as well. Man.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty wonderful.
All right, here we go. Hold on, I just covered up my own. Can't even see the meeting anymore. All right.
Please stand by. Technical difficulties.
No difficulties.
Oh man. This really is fucking tasty.
Lee Norby.
Lee Norby.
Leenorby has won a sample of Foregate Batch 6.
Is that a real thing? That's not a Tupac Shakur kind of thing, right?
What's interesting is that they're number 2 on the list. I used random.org for a list randomizer, and number 2 was Renee Norby, who I believe, if I remember correctly, same address.
There you go.
So there was a battle there between the two, and Lee, you came out on top. So,
way to go, Lee, man. You're gonna enjoy yourself.
And I'm not saying don't share, but don't share.
Eric says, "I'll buy it. No need for a sample." All right,
right.
Eric, you didn't win, so you don't get a
there you
sample.
go, Eric. There you go.
Well, and Greg then says, "Not present." Next.
I like it.
My sample's almost finished, so I'm looking forward to the bottle arrival tomorrow.
There you go.
Awesome. Very good. Yeah. So we've got, so we'll send that out to Lee. That'll come out, today's Wednesday. So I'll probably have it shipped. I think UPS is doing a pickup on Friday. So they'll go out to Lee on Friday. And Hopefully he'll get that Monday or Tuesday. I don't remember what state he's from. I probably shouldn't announce it on this anyway. But let me post his address for everyone. No, that'll go out. If you want a coin, if you're listening live or on recording, we are selling challenge coins, ModernThirst.com/shop. They are $10 each. They're collectible. They fit perfectly on top of a Glencairn. In fact, I've got one right here.
And there's a
and of
picture
course,
of
my
mine.
green screen is screwing this up. If someone else
A
has
little
one
bit.
handy, show it. There you go. But they have, they're all numbered.
Nice.
There's a serial number on each, 0 through 100. We kept about 20 of them in house.
Got number 12.
And actually,
I
I
have
got number
number
11 in
20.
my hand, so I'm right there with you. So these numbers, every time you buy one, I'm keeping track of who gets what number. When they're all sold, we're going to give away a bottle of Four Gate Foundation Batch 5. So that's a $200 value. It's a 9-year, 9-month-old Kentucky straight bourbon. It's fantastic stuff. You can go to Rarebird 101 if you want to read a great review and talking about the what's in the bottle, all that fun stuff. So when they're also sold, that's going to be the grand prize drawing. We'll give them away based on that. And in the meantime, every time we do one of these live casts, I'm going to pull a number and we're just going to give a random sample out of either something we've reviewed lately or something that I've just have on hand and have been drinking and I think people would like or just
You know what? Here, you know what? I will add to that. Hold on.
You want to do a different? You want to do a different one?
No. We can, but I'll pull something out of mine. So
Somebody just
the
went off
next
script.
sample that we give away will be in 1965 Old Crow.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, well, I'm going to put my name in for every entry. Then, so,
I mean, I'm just
That
going to
will
say
be the next sample.
my coin
We'll do-
works for that drawing, right?
We'll do 2 ounces. So we'll do 2 ounces of a 1965 Old Crow.
Oh my goodness.
That'll be the next thing.
Guys should probably, anyone who's out there should buy a freaking coin.
I mean, buy a coin and let's do it.
Buy it.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, so your chances are actually pretty good because again, we kept like 20 coins in house out of the 100, and none of us are eligible. I've kept track of who has them again. So all of our writers and the ones that I kept are not eligible to win any of these prizes or anything like that. So it's probably closer to 80. So you buy a coin for $10, and
Eric's asking how much the coins are.
Coins are $10. That includes your shipping.
$10 to make you holla.
Yeah,
I don't know anywhere where you can get.
You get
where
lots
you can
of
get
chances to win something.
I'll take the rest.
I'll take the rest.
So our last video, I gave away 2. I gave away a Heaven Hill Select stock. It was a bourbon finished in coffee barrels, and then I gave away the latest Elijah Craig barrel proof sample. This one we did the 4 Gate Kelvin Collaboration 2. Next one we'll do the Old Crow that I will win, and then after that we'll find something new every time. So we'll just do something interesting. We'll just pull it off one of our shelves and probably most likely my shelf on most of them. And by then we might be, there's a 4 Gate rye coming out in June that I happen to have some bottles of already. So maybe that'll have to come out. I actually, some other things I have that are pretty neat is I've got probably gallons worth of samples pulled straight from barrels. Some of those would be pretty interesting.
I have a few of those too, so that would be fun. We could go that way too.
Gallons of those.
You have way more than I do. That's for damn sure.
Gallons. I filled up some rye samples from barrel samples, ranging from 6 to 9 years, and I poured them all into a 2-liter like decanter the other day, and I probably only got half of my samples into that. I was trying to batch them all.
Wow.
Indiana rye. They were there. Oh, it's so good.
You and I need to have a conversation after this.
You're not eligible, Bill Scott. You cannot.
Damn it. Are you threatening me?
So anyway, that's what we got for you tonight. Do you guys have anything else you want to talk about? We're coming up on about an hour. We got about 7 minutes left before we'll cut this off.
I got nothing.
No, just keep on keeping on. Do what you can to keep your sanity in these crazy, crazy times. And if you're homeschooling, do your best not to be drinking on the job. And everybody stay strong out there.
Awesome.
I'm gonna say there's no shame in starting your drinking at 10 o'clock.
So-
There's no shame.
Is everyone else
No
drinking
shame.
pretty much every day?
Yeah, man.
Do I need to,
I'll
do
be
I need
real.
a
I
different
start
kind of
drinking.
coin? I mean,
I start drinking in the morning. There's no shame.
I have not drank in the morning, but I did. I took a mental health day on Monday. So I work here, and I you can't see it because I have a green screen with a virtual background, which is why those bottles were looking weird. But it gets really old. I'm in an unfinished storage room in my basement, and it gets really old being down here all day long. So the last week was probably one of the first times that this whole thing really got to me. And I just needed a day, and the weather was supposed to be nice. So I took a vacation day this Monday. I got up, and as soon as it got warm enough, I went and played 9 holes of golf, and hit the ball really. I played by myself, walked the course nearby, just a little muni course nearby.
So you hit par.
If
If you're by yourself, dude, that's par all day. I don't
mean,
know.
yeah, I shot,
It's no
I shot
joke.
5 under course record.
Right?
No, it's just kind of chicken soup for the soul. I love golf. I haven't got to play much since my kids were born, but I'm going to start playing a little bit more now that they're getting old enough to, step out for a couple hours at a time.
Yep.
But it was nice. So I had that in the morning, and then I played with the girls. As soon as Molly finished her schoolwork, we spent a few hours. The weather was beautiful, so we were outside, and then we my brother-in-law and his 2 kids have been hermits during this thing. They have literally seen no one but us and my mother and father-in-law. So we went over to their house, and that's one reason that I've been very careful about this is my father-in-law is at risk type of
Sure.
and they still see our kids often, and there's absolutely no way if I ever brought this to him, oh my God, I'd never live with myself. So
Yeah.
Yep.
so I've been very careful about going out in public. I very seldom go into a liquor store. I very seldom go anywhere unless I absolutely have to. So, but yeah, so Monday was just a great day for me, and I highly encourage anybody out there and any of you guys here, when it starts getting rough, and it can, even though that we're starting to see a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel, just take a little bit of time to set yourself straight and get your mind right.
Oh, I regularly put myself in timeout.
Yeah. Same.
Do what you got to do. If you like to read, if you just need a little quiet time to go sit on the porch, just,
Yep.
take a little time, work it out with a spouse, don't cause friction, but,
And for those homeschooling, the random tornado drills and stuff, those work really well to get a little break.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for that.
I am going to do that tomorrow.
I'm so doing that tomorrow.
My wife's actually taking off the next 2 days. She works for a big healthcare provider, and they gave them extra days off for COVID-19, knowing that so many people were homeschooling and just kind of the resources were stretched. So very good for them. So she's off the next 2 days, and hopefully that she gets a chance to do something, just to go for a walk and work out and do stuff that she likes to do. So
That's awesome.
My
Eric
son
Carrico,
has
anytime
not.
you want to golf at Cardinal Club, bring your bourbon and it's free. Eric,
There
I
you
used
go.
to be a member of Cardinal Club before U of L bought it. As soon as we found out we were pregnant with our first kid, my wife had us
Nice,
stop
Eric.
the membership. But I love the course there, best practice facilities in the state. And I think when this is cleared up, I'm probably joining Lake Forest. I live pretty much right between Cardinal Club and Lake Forest here in Louisville. So yeah, Eric,
My son hasn't been outside
team
and-
up sometime.
My son hasn't been outside in like 6 weeks. And last week I had a buddy stop by, and we social distanced a beer together. I stayed on the porch, and he was almost standing in the street.
Yeah.
And my son was on the porch with me, and he was so stoked to see somebody else. He's just like, ah!
Right.
So that was nice. It really is nice. If you can, I'm a stickler for sticking to the rules, and maybe along the same lines that Bill is too, is, really, really trying to follow it, and if there's a way where you can social distance, but still go outside, damn it,
Yep.
please do it, because it is so fucking refreshing.
We
It
do.
totally is.
We have one family. We have some neighbors that are good friends of ours who, and they have come over a couple of times where we will sit on. I have like a side entrance garage. So I have a big driveway where you have to drive up to the driveway and then turn to get into. So I have a big square of the driveway, and we'll sit on one side of it in folding chairs, and they'll sit about 15 feet away in the other ones, and they bring a cooler drinks, and we'll sit there for, an hour or so and chat and kind of shout across the driveway. It's really nice. If you can do that, do it. If your weather permits and you got friends who are doing it, you can do it safely. I can't begin to say how important it is to take care of your own mental health during all of this.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
For sure. We're doing that too. I mean, I've got like my family is close by. And so we've gone over to my parents' house, but like stayed way away from the house, but they shouted out the window at us. We shouted back in the window at them. And so they got to talk to my kids. And then I know that my in-laws are also close by. And then we also have my sister-in-law, like literally down the block from us. And so that when they walk by, we do that whole like shouting and waving thing. And at least that way you don't feel so stuck. But my daughter is also the master of Zoom. I mean, anything that looks like a technical glitch that I run into in a meeting, if I were to just run into a problem, I just got to go grab her because she can fix all of this. And so she's on Zoom calls at like random times. I find out that she's like getting a text at like 3:00 in the afternoon and jumping on a Zoom call. And I went, what's wrong with your homework? Who are you talking to right now? So she's not missing a beat. Her social life is solid, but
that's awesome.
Yeah. That I think that being able to stay connected, I think that being able to see people and have some sense of normalcy is key. And I mean, I don't get to work in schools. I don't work with kids, but everything I've been told, and Wes, you may have a better example of or better ways to speak about this, but as much normalcy as possible. I mean, obviously there's no way to have total normalcy right now, but as much as you can possibly deliver and as much calm as you possibly can deliver, especially when you're talking about little kids, that's key. That's going to be very helpful long run.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And as someone posted in the chat, a lot of parents are saying, "Hey, summer started early."
Right.
I saw that. It's summer, right? It's summer.
No, because I have to do my wife and I are doing the homeschooling crap with my daughter. She's in kindergarten, for God's sakes, and she does more homework than I did through high school. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know.
For everyone out there, just remember this when they're looking at a tax increase to help support teachers in your state. Remember the last 6 weeks.
Teachers should make $1 million a year.
I know.
Agreed.
I was never that guy. I never said horrible things. Like I always knew the teachers worked hard, but I was the guy that made that joke about 3 months off and the best job in the whole wide world because you're done at 3:00. Dude, if you're done at 3:00, first of all, that's never true. Second of all, God bless you, because I don't even know how you made it to 3. I mean, I really don't. So yeah, that's
takes a
not
certain
gonna have
kind of
problem.
patience that I don't have. I've learned that.
Ooh,
that's why I needed my mental health day. One
Agreed.
thing before we sign off, the one thing that I think has really touched me the most during this, I don't mean that in a weird way, because that would be Timothy who's touched me the most.
Dirty.
It would typically be so my mother is in a long-term care facility, and then for one of our neighbors' little girls who's good friends with my kids, they had a drive-by parade, and at my mother's facility they brought all the residents out, and they were in wheelchairs, and they kind of lined them up about 6 feet apart in the parking lot, and then all the families drove through and beeped horns, and the kids were waving, and I was in tears. My mom was in tears. It was fantastic. Hadn't seen her in weeks. And then just 2 days ago, one of our neighbors, their daughter had a birthday, so they had a drive-by parade. She was in the,
it was awesome.
And their
I
family
saw it.
were out in their chairs in the driveway, and everyone drove by blowing horns, and it kind of threw gifts out the windows into the front yard for it. It was just so neat. Really cool, really cool. And Greg knows what's up. He knows what's happening about Tim. He knows what's up. Tim's Joe Biden and everybody.
Yes, a little bit, just a little bit.
All right, we have reached the hour mark, and we like to cut these off at an hour because we really don't have anything else to say. We're not that exciting. So you guys have anything to add before we sign off?
No. Everybody stay safe out there. Just do your best. Stay
Till next
strong.
time.
Till next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers till next time.